Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. All right, so here's why nothing will ever happen to the COVID criminals like Fauci. It's because there's just too many people implicated. You probably saw that the White House finally changed the status of the COVID thing. In other words, they reframed it. They said, they basically said that a lot of the things that a lot of people thought were true. But if you go there, there's still, the problem is it still bolsters the lie that COVID was ever a disease worth the attention of every human on earth, right? That it was ever something serious, that it was ever something that wouldn't have come and gone without notice had it not been branded. That's the part that it's still keeping that alive. It's still keeping the myth alive that it was this deadly biological weapon, that was invented by Fauci in another country to kill millions of people. Maybe it was for that, but it wasn't because of the disease itself. Because the disease, if you look at all the numbers, and just your own life, fuck the numbers, fuck the website. Just think of yourself. Who do you know in your life that allegedly died from COVID? Not one of them was a shocking death. Not one. Not a single person died from COVID-19 at home, aka not in the hospital where they were murdered with remdesivir and an incubator or intubator. But at home, no, nobody did. If you know anybody who died from COVID, they either went to the hospital because they were nervous and scared, and they got remdesivir and put on an intubator and died there at the hospital where everybody who died from COVID died, because nobody died at home. Or they were fat and diabetic and had a lot of different other things. So they were just old, past their expiration point, past the, life expectancy. You don't know anybody that died from COVID. It wasn't until the vaccine came around that you started seeing kids dying, athletes dying, all these vaccinated people. So if it was the impetus, if the rebranding, let's just put it this way. Also, you look that nobody got the flu. Nobody. During 2020 and 2021, the flu magically disappeared. Even on official documents, as you see every year, many millions of people in the U.S. get the flu. But all of a sudden during the 2020 and 2021 and blah, 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 during that era, nobody got it. A couple people, a couple of rogue doctors that decided to still diagnose the flu rather than attributing it to COVID. It was not a biological weapon. Even if they designed it to be, it didn't work. It didn't work. That's good news. That's good news. The good news is if they designed a biological weapon, nature mitigated, nature stepped in and went, nope, not going to work. It's only going to kill the same people that the flu kills. Anyway, it's just stupid. How can you look at a chart and look at the flu disappearing? It's a column shift. I was saying this in early 2020. They took Everything that was in seasonal illness, the flu column, and they just rebranded it and called it COVID, and flu disappeared. It was so apparent to me. But of course, the more I shouted about it, the more I got banned, and the more I got censored on every single platform, because it was that obvious. But see, even that won't work. The reason why even that, if people could be honest enough to just realize that that's the facts, first of all, also how many people lied during COVID, said, my uncle died of COVID or my sister died of COVID. Liar. They were lying all the way through 2020. People would say shit like that. I'd try to research. I'd say, send me the fucking funeral program. Send me a link. How dare you ask? It's like, no, you're all lying. You're all lying because you all have conscripted yourself as heroes of the new COVID era with your mask and everything else. You've rebranded cowardice as heroism. You rebranded seasonal illness as the deadliest disease that ever hit mankind. So you're never going to get past that. All the people who lied and who partook in it, who considered themselves heroes, the people that yelled at their neighbors and turned them in for... These people are too far invested, And now they have this vaccine pumping through their veins. Lord knows they're afraid of it. You would be. I don't know. Like Trump isn't going to come clean on that. He can't. How can he? I mean, he could, but not with his personality. Could be a deathbed thing that he might say. I was totally duped. But he doesn't want to say that. And the thing is, you can't really say that anyway because there's the psychological component of it worked so well. I was saying this during it. I said, because like my sister, look, everybody, she was a skeptic. She wasn't a believer. She wasn't a mask wearer. She wasn't a vaccine taker. But during that era, let's go back to how it would have come and gone. Every single other cold and flu season came and went. They would try to market it on Time magazine or People magazine. The bird flu, they've been trying for years to try to scare people into getting vaccines and scaring people. But for the most part, the cold season, whatever causes it, who knows? I don't know. The cold and flu season came and went. And sometimes you got a cold. Sometimes you didn't. But if you did, your friend or your family might have known about it. Whoever lived with you might have heard you pooping and barfing in the bathroom. And you were laid out in bed. You had some chicken soup. You stayed home from work for a couple of days. And that was that. The TV wasn't filled with, you're dying, you're dying, you're dying. Most evil disease ever, But people who got sick during COVID, even if they were skeptics, were getting COVID, 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 every direction. So even if you were this person that had courage and you weren't gullible, you're still in the back of your mind, you're going, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? And you got everybody's comparing their symptoms. That's never happened before, where everybody's concentrating on their illness. Well, let me tell you something. Placebo works both ways. If somebody believes they are going to die from something, they are far more likely to die from something, just because they believe they will. You can convince somebody that they're sick. It's a sick trick, but you can do it. That's what gaslighting is about. You can convince somebody they've gone crazy. You can even convince somebody they feel pain in their leg. It probably happens to you sometimes. You think you feel a pain or whatever, and I go, oh shit, what is that? Probably this or probably that. If you focus on it, it gets worse. I don't know. It's just, there's no way of undoing it. There's no way of getting to a point of accountability because there are just too many people involved. And They don't want to think about it. The vaccine people, they don't want to think about what might be floating in their blood right now, replicating, causing cancer, or prepping them for a stroke or a heart attack. They don't want to think about that. Can you blame them? They probably shouldn't think about that. The same way they shouldn't have been thinking about COVID in the first place. Thinking about it too much probably made them feel sick. You know, I've got friends, when you tell people, look, COVID wasn't a real thing. It was rebranded seasonal illness. So people that are even skeptics, the anti-government, anti-conformists will say, oh, no, I got it. It was definitely something different. I've never had that before. It's like I got sick during the COVID era, laid out for a few days. And it was like how I've gotten sick before. It wasn't exactly the same because, I was older. Getting sick when you're 12 is different than getting sick when you're 50. Getting sick last week is different than getting sick this week. None of them are identical. Nothing in your life was ever identical. What's that old saying? You never swim in the same river twice. It's always going to be different. But that hyperfixation, if you're a believer, confirmation bias, a lot of these people, so there's like different camps. I think I belong to the smallest camp, which is the people that just simply deny that COVID was anything other than marketing, that it was rebranding. It was seeing an opportunity. Illness is going to come around. Let's rebrand it. Everybody focus on it. Death's already happened. Let's just be opportunists. Let's take every death and capitalize on it. Every death that happens, we can say is COVID. Scare the fuck out of people, put a death clock. All branding, all psychological warfare. There's that camp. I think it's the smallest camp. That's my camp. I think it's the realist camp. It's the people that acknowledge reality the most, the best. But then there's the camp the conspiracist camp, which think that China and Fauci and the powers that be invented a biological weapon to depopulate the planet, and that China, the communists, and Fauci's evil, and Bill Gates is evil, and that's why they did it, And so if those people, imagine the two different camps. I'm from it's flu camp. So when I get sick, I'm thinking it's the flu. I treat it like the flu. It comes away. But if you treat it like the biological weapon camp, you're feeling the difference. Oh, there's something different. It's metallic. I can feel the things in my DNA. Because that's what you think it is. You think they have a magic little robots going in your blood. Let me tell you something. Your imagination is powerful. If you want to believe something like that, you're probably going to figure it out. And even if you don't, you might trick yourself into believing it, or you just want other people to believe about it because who knows why? I don't know why people want to appoint themselves heroes of this or that, or believers or purveyors of knowledge. I got secret information. I got it. Did you notice how during COVID, I noticed this somebody I know was posting, it was almost a badge of honor for some people to say, I got COVID. I remember one person, I know them very well. They live in my house, in my building. And so I see their comings and goings. And they were fine the whole time. But if you look on their Facebook or their Instagram, it was like, oh, I got sick. Like, no, you didn't. You didn't even you didn't skip a beat, But they probably took a PCR test, and somebody told them they had COVID. Remember that, the invisible COVID that you could have without feeling sick? Oh, I got it. I didn't feel anything, though. Amazing. It's amazing. I got COVID. How'd you know? I didn't. Somebody told me. That's That's so insane that a symptomless disease people were worried about. And they really were. Oh, you can get it and you can spread it. You never know who you're going to give it to, grandma or whatever. It's like, dude, grandma's going to die of old age anyway. You don't get, one of my pet peeves is when people say, the cause of death was finally determined in 99-year-old Sally Dickface. It was a acute brain hemorrhage. It's like, no, she died of fucking 99, dude. I don't want to hear any of your bullshit about other things that she died of. She died of 99. And most of the people that died of COVID died from their other fucking shit. And it's so obvious for anybody that's willing to take a look. But most people won't. They're in too deep. They are in too deep. All the vaccinated people, you are never going to get even as a significant percentage of vaccinated people admitting that they were gullible and stupid and scared and cowardly enough and conformist enough to inject themselves with poison. Because they know that there wasn't. A part of the genius of the no ingredients, don't ask questions, don't question the science narrative is that every one of those things you add onto it increases the stupidity and gullibility of the person that does it. You know, because let's say there was a vaccine with an ingredients list or, hey, here's our studies, here, check them out. Please read this very carefully. Do not get this injection until you read carefully. The thing is they told him, no, just trust the science. Here, they literally put a blank piece of paper in the vaccine box because they didn't have the studies. It was almost like an insult. It was like a dare. It's like it's saying, look, how much warning do you need? You stupid sucker. I told you. We never gave you any promises. Look at the sheet that was in the box. It was empty, and you took it anyway. It's your fault, dumbass. They prepped themselves perfectly well to be able to say that to people. And I think it is fair for them to say that. It's like, why did you believe me? I gave you every opportunity to back out. There were no studies. There were no ingredients lists. Doctors didn't know what was in it. Just fucking trust the scientists. Trust the science. Trust your doctor. Trust your dancing TikTok nurses. Think of all the TikTok nurses drunk dancing. Are they ever going to come around? No. They identified with it. It's the same way you'll never get PhDs to any degree admitting that they were brainwashed by school. Why? Because they're in debt. They hung this certificate on their wall. They printed out their business cards with the alphabet numbers after it. They're in too deep. Pride, shame will prevent people from ever telling the of COVID. It will prevent, again, maybe Donald Trump. Let's try to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that he was duped. He seemed to be duped at the time. It's easy to scare people. You surround yourself with a bunch of, if you've for a significant portion of your life accepted credentials as being something that's impressive, if you've bragged about your going to college, if you bragged about your friends going to college, if you've bragged about hanging around with doctors and lawyers, and if you've given yourself a badge of honor by being part of the elite class, the academic class, and if you become a member of it and they've given you honorary degrees and, to just automatically flush all that down the toilet, that's not going to happen. You've been sufficiently hazed into the cartel. probably psychologically too. So even Trump, he got COVID, he got sick, and he's a human being just like us. So even maybe he might have been in his mind, China, fucking China. China did this. What's in my blood right now? What's happening to me is China, China, China. And he really was convinced that he had the best doctors in the world, and he had that staff at the military hospital or whatever sucking his dick and giving him the best top. So he's buying into that shit. He buys into the top steaks, the best ties, he buys into that quality nonsense. It's his whole brand. The surfaces, and you know what I mean? It's just like, how does he get out of that? He's steeped in it. And that's being generous. He doesn't have to be at all have bad intentions about any of it, but to undo the programming that people have, to realize, oh man, all credentials are bullshit. All the experts are just weak, stupid human beings. Those little papers that they hang on their wall, they're not certificates of knowledge or achievement. They're conformity certificates. And you just got to clap like a seal the right way, bark back the same answers, pay the right amount of money, invest the right amount of time, and you'll get the certificate. And you'll never admit, most of these people never admit, that it's all just a fucking psychological play. It's just an elitist club. I'm in the club. Most people don't want to quit their clubs. I'm actually kind of rare. People that quit their church or turn their back on their cultures or whatever. It's kind of a rare thing. I'm not even going to brag about it, but it's not a common thing. Most people, their sense of direction is peripheral. They sense the movement of the herd, and then they do what the herd's doing. So it's just a matter of, what is your herd? What's your herd doing? So even, let's say, the right-wingers that weren't vaccinated and didn't do things, a lot of them, a significant portion of them, didn't think it through. They simply noticed that none of their friends were doing it. So they went with the herd. So yeah, we're not going to get to the bottom of it. If the thing on the website, on the White House website, said COVID was a psychological operation, here are the people that started it, here are the people that propped it up, and it had a list of all these media people, WEF, you know what I mean? And people that stood, all the wealth transfer that happened, because that's really what happened. The cooperation was that summit, that project. What was the project? Happened in 2019, Bill Gates and all that stuff. What was that name of that thing? Damn it, I forgot. I've sent people the link 1,000 times, and I forgot what it's called. Event 201, that's what it was. That was the staging. That's where they planned the whole thing. Those are the people that you need to look at. If you went to the government website and you said COVID-19 was a psychological operation that was hatched at Event 201, and here are the players behind that. You got Johns Hopkins, you got Bill Gates, you got WEF people, you got these certain military people, you got Miley. I can't remember the rest of the people that were at that conference, but those are the people. Susan Rice, I think she was there. All the usual suspects. Fauci's probably connected. That's the group that created the psychological weapon known as COVID. They're the ones that war gamed the response, and it all went. It all worked. Everything they planned worked. That's scary because it shows you how well psychological weapons work. But also, it's good news because it shows you that they don't have a biological weapon in their back pocket to kill most of humanity. Nature's too good at escaping those kinds of things. It's really hard to kill everybody, because if a disease really works, the people who get it die too fast and it doesn't spread. You know? That's kind of the interesting thing about that. Just mathematically speaking, something that to kill everybody, you have to have something that spreads and then waits to kill them. Something like a vaccine, maybe. You know? The vaccine is the thing that works. But even then, nature mitigates. Not everybody that gets the vaccine is going to die from it. Because nature's got plans. Nature goes, wait, you got an immune system. So for most people, if you don't drop dead in the first couple of hours, you're not going to die. Because your body's going to fight it off and whatever. Don't listen to me. I don't know. I don't know how the inner workings of a body works, but I know that none of the pigeons died. None of the squirrels died. The trees were fine. The ladybugs were fine. Even the bumblebees were fine. Though the air was poison, everything was fine. The only people that were affected by COVID-19 were human beings with wild imaginations. People who were susceptible to suggestion. People who don't have good bullshit detectors. And unfortunately, that includes most people. Because like I said, even the right wing, so many of the people on the right wing that totally objected to the forced vaccinations and the lockdowns and all the evil shit that they did, a lot of those people are still buying into the idea that it was a deadly biological weapon invented by Fauci and his Chinese buddies. Maybe it was, but if it was, it didn't work. All right? It didn't work. And the next one won't work either. It might work psychologically. Probably will work psychologically on some degree. They're going to have to pivot, though, because people learned a lot. And even the people that took the vaccine and wore the masks and all that stuff, well, even though they pretend to keep going along with it, they know. Because they know that their non-vax friends are more healthy. That's the reality. Is all of these people that got triple boosted and masked up, they all know people that didn't get vaccinated. And they know that those people are fine. At least as fine as they are. Probably better. And they might be trying to convince themselves that's not true, but that's the reality. The reality is the non-vaccinated communities fared better than the vaccinated communities through that psychological warfare. So that's not going to work. It's not going to work again. Not for a while. Not on this current generation. It's going to take a longer rebrand, you know. But anyway, that's why you're not going to see an end to it. I wish we would, but I'm afraid that the myth and the lie of COVID-19 is not going to be widely ever acknowledged. You know, it won't be. Because the other narratives they make people feel much better about the way they behaved. And people don't, in my view, I don't see a lot of people wanting to take accountability. I just haven't seen enough people in the world. There aren't enough people that are happy to say, I was fooled, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Humanity hasn't changed, and they won't change, I don't think. Anyway, thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song. to totally